Welcome to another episode of Let's Review Stargate with Layla and you, a Stargate rewatch where we love the show deeply, question it freely, and have a lot to say about both. And I'm happy to have you here. For me, these Stargate stories matter, not just because they're full of sci-fi silliness and big explosions, though we get that too, because there are stories, which makes this show both entertaining and educational in all of the best storytelling ways. Let's see what holds up, what doesn't, and what hits differently when we watch it now from today's perspective. Alright, let's talk Stargate and see where it takes us. This episode picks up right where we left off in There But For the Grace of God, but first, the episode deed. Politics was written by Brad Wright and directed by Martin Wood. It also introduces us to Ronnie Cox, who plays Senator Robert Kinsey, a character I never grew to like, and honestly, I still haven't met anyone who does, so if you're one of those people, shout out! But for me, at the same time, that's also why this performance works so well. Kinsey is memorable for all the wrong reasons in all the right ways. And because we will be seeing quite a bit of him, sorry, spoiler, I did want to take a moment to separate the actor from the character, for I was happily surprised to learn Ronnie Cox is still alive and kicking at almost 88 years old. He married his high school sweetheart who sadly died in 2006 on the 50th anniversary of their first date. Aww. So they do still happen, those kinds of love stories. He describes himself as a storytelling singer and songwriter who still performs all across the United States to this day. In 2018, he even won a Round Glass Music Award for a song about Alzheimer's disease called Bus to Baltimore. Hot damn. So yes, though Kinsey may be a grade A douche, the man playing him clearly a completely different person. So yeah, I thought that was worth mentioning. Though I am a tad disappointed that on his website not once is Stargate mentioned. Now I know Kinsey isn't anyone's favorite character, at least, assuming. But apparently his other mentions on his website were similar in smarmy politician territory, so I can't help but wonder why there was no Stargate mention. On to the actual review of the episode. Apparently a lot of people don't seem to like politics. Pun intended. Because they see it as just a filler clip show episode. I gotta say I disagree, because this isn't just a walk down memory lane. It's justifying the show's existence and showing us why SG-1 and the SGC are the best people for this kind of job and exactly the kind of people we would want on the front line in situations like this. This episode reflects on how we got here in the first place by putting SG-1, Stargate Command, and even the whole idea of a secret agency on trial, as well as simultaneously exposing the hypocrisy and danger of letting one government-appointed, narcissistic, narrow-minded asshat politician such as Kinsey, who oh so clearly is in it for his own gains, dictate policy and thereby decide all of Earth's fate, not just America, and possibly dooming us all in the process. Seriously, this episode is doing a lot. It's giving us a clear reminder how important it is to hold every kind of power accountable, what true leadership looks like, and putting governmental failure on display in the best of ways, which especially now hits oh so hard when we view this from today's perspective, don't it? Also, this episode is the first to end on a to be continued, giving the viewer really a moment to sit with all of this before diving right back into the action. So join me as I unpack why this episode matters far more than many tend to give it credit for. And as always, I'd love for y'all to chime in. This episode starts right off where There But For the Grace of God left off. We see Daniel getting patched up in the infirmary from the staff blast he received in the previous episode, as he's trying to convince the team that no, it wasn't a vision, hallucination, or dream, but that he actually experienced an alternate reality. Teal initially seems skeptical, O'Neill seems to be marinating on it, but can't seem to withhold a true O'Neillism, as he makes a Wizard of Oz reference by saying, and you were there, and there's no place like home. I love him. Carter tries to be a little more diplomatic and claims that it's not that they don't believe him, unfortunately making O'Neill jump in stating, oh no, he doesn't. Thank you. Great help there. But Carter being the scientist, she goes for the scientific approach and starts to ask Daniel questions like, were there differences? And I gotta say, it's so important to have someone like that around you at all times. Someone that cuts past the bullshit and just really looks at it. Very important. Critical thinking and open mind. Because we all know what happens when you assume. I mean, we've been over this, right? When you assume you make an ass of you and me, and not the happy kind. I'm gonna leave that there. Teal'c's eyebrow raise at the mention that he led the attack is nothing compared to the awkwardness when Daniel mentions that O'Neill and Carter were engaged in the alternate reality. O'Neill seems to get a little hung up on it, but do notice his hang up is only because they aren't allowed with the current military structure, not that he wouldn't wanna. And also Carter is more a voice of curiosity and not disgust or dismissal. Oh, you two. Honestly, the writers were shipping them basically from day one, right? Let's be real. Daniel explains the undeniable truth. The defining event, the death of Ra, took place in both realities. So, yeah, we could experience the same fate as they did. Probably all the more seeing, well, through all the clips this episode goes through. See, it has a point. For these clips are the evidence that remind us what SG-1 has endured, and simultaneously also reveals what Kinsey seems to fail to understand. For now, here enters General Hammond and Schmuckety Samuels, with an extra layer of grease, it seems. Lord, does he remind me of Hexeth. It's like the more smarmy someone gets, the more greasy they become. Isn't that right, Snippeles? Although, that turned out to be a misleader if ever there was one. Oh, the 90s, a time before we broke certain stereotypes. Though not all of them, huh, JK? Especially not here right now for Samuels, who was formerly a major and now a lieutenant colonel, as he so disgustingly smugly emphasizes. And does anyone specifically get that Sparky reference O'Neill makes? I know it's just to sass him, but as a non-American, I can only guess it's in reference to his, shall we say, excitability? For, I mean, everything about him just screams coward, and when push comes to shove, tail stuck firmly between the legs. Anyway, back to the episode. As it turns out, unbeknownst to them, today SG-1 is going to testify at the hearing to plead for the continuation of the Stargate program to Senator Robert Kinsey. Daniel has seen what's coming, and despite the others still processing what Daniel told them, not even sure if they believe it, they band together for their common goal as they're forced to try to convince Senator Kinsey of the Stargate program's worth, especially seeing what might probably, most definitely, is coming down the pike. For though they might initially be skeptical of Daniel's story, they deep down know that the Goa'ulds are capable and most likely coming for Earth sooner rather than later. We learn that Senator Kinsey is chairman of the Appropriations Committee, so basically he's the dude holding the money bag that funds programs such as Stargate, and seeing that it apparently cost $7.4 billion to operate the Stargate program, ugh, good old 90s. I mean, if we look at the money they're throwing around today, it kind of sounds like peanuts, doesn't it? And, with $1 billion of that going to lighting alone, I know you're underground and all, but have you looked into solar power or any other cost-effective energy sources? Lordy. And I really like O'Neill's suggestions of raising money such as a bake sale or a yard sale. You're gonna have to have a pretty big yard though to rake in that kind of money, but keep the positive thoughts going. Here we also learn, or at least this is the first time I clocked it, that they refer to Stargate as Area 52, which I found kind of adorable. I mean, it isn't just added to Area 51's dealing with aliens, but it is given its own designator, though very closely linked to Area 51. As we see Kinsey enter the SGC with this very politician energy, being late for one, with heaps of fake humility, tons of moral superiority, I gotta say, it felt wrong to see Hammond sitting amongst the others and not at the head of the table. But then again, surely, undoubtedly, that was done on purpose. For Kinsey sits down at the head of the table, and after short introductions, which always makes me laugh when he mentions the apostrophe in Teal'c's name, and you see that big ass smile on O'Neill's face. I love that moment. That made this very tense, serious. I really don't like that dude vibe, at least for a teeny tiny second, be forgotten. Which instantly comes back as soon as Kinsey starts framing his concern as being about secrecy, which is oh so fucking rich coming from an American politician. But sure, let's pretend that that's the main issue for now. Though, side note, if you know his character and where it's going, he is gonna have to eat those words. Shocker, the dude's a hypocrite. For these men don't mind the secrecy or control or even how much it costs, as long as they're the ones in control of it. That's the whole point. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back to the episode. And this was particularly funny to me, as in I literally laughed out loud, as Kinsey references that he read several reports of their excursion. And I couldn't help laugh because this week in the news it was all about Trump and the mention of excursion. Oh, can you see the parallels, people? Oh god. Anyway, the team starts to make their case, and this is what Stargate again does so well. Each member of SG-1 defends the program from who they are. Carter argues the scientific advancements, Daniel argues for the cultural and historical significance. Teal'c, plainly just by being Jaffa, knows up close and personal better than anyone who the Goa'uld are and what they stand for, and the kind of threat that they pose. And O'Neill takes the lead in trying to keep this meeting on the rails, as far as it was ever on the rails to begin with. For as they're debating their viewpoints, it becomes crystal clear. Kinsey has not come with an open mind as he so claims, for he clearly just wants to shut the program down and bury the gate. And I do love that O'Neill is the one that immediately calls him out on it, even though Hammond kind of sort of shushes him. From the get-go, it's pretty clear, right? Here's a teeny tiny tangent. I never knew that Pandora was the first woman created by Zeus. And again, I couldn't help but think, like, oh, patriarchy right there, people. Just how the male oriented religions always paint the woman as the one that fucked it all up. Eve ate the apple and ruined the Garden of Eden, and apparently Pandora opened the box and let out all of its evil. What I also didn't know was that Pandora was created in retaliation for Prometheus' betrayal by stealing fire and gifting it to the humans. So she was meant to be a plague. She was, again, like Eve, set up to fail. These narratives are often used to blame women for bringing evil into the world, when in actuality it symbolizes that by doing so, they brought to life the very thing that makes us human, by introducing awareness in the sense of duality, and granting us the ability to choose and thereby have free will. Because if there's no darkness, no real alternative, then choosing the light isn't really a choice at all, it's just blind obedience. So what Tiny Dick Energy, aka patriarchy, frames as feminine failure, I'd argue could and should be read as the beginning of human consciousness and evolution, and give me that over empty Stepford wife living any day. But sure hate on the woman. That was, yeah, I notice that now, that it's once again the first female who ruined everything trope. Are we starting to see the trend yet? I am. It's very annoying. Anyway, I like it that O'Neill pulls back to the facts and states that, yes, the metaphorical box has been opened, for by killing Ra, they made the Goa'ulds aware of Earth, and now they know that we can and do pose a threat to their continued existence of wanting to dominate the people scattered throughout the galaxy. And that's kind of the whole thing, right? Like, if you're unaware, you're unaware. You don't know any better. But as soon as you become aware of certain things, in this case, that the Goa'uld are out there and that they pose a threat sooner or later, just purely by being who they are and what they do, that is the point they're trying to make. The box has been opened. It's too late now to go back. And I couldn't help but notice that Kinsey tries to dismiss this argument, saying it has been used throughout time to justify war. And, well, you made it out on foot. So how much of a threat could they actually be? And the frustrating thing is, he's not entirely wrong. It's just he is grossly mischaracterizing what is happening. And I wanted to delve a little deeper into that. As that brings us another way in which this episode really shined. So yes, Kinsey is annoyingly so correct to call out that pattern. All throughout history, claiming that someone is a threat to our existence has been used to justify going to war. However, this situation here is different in a very important way. SG-1 is not exaggerating the Goa'uld threat for political gain, nor are they arguing that Earth should now go out and conquer the galaxy. They're saying the Goa'uld now know we exist, that we pose a real threat. The SGC has seen what the Goa'uld are, what they do, and what happens to worlds that cannot defend themselves against them. This isn't a hypothetical threat, and it's not fear-based propaganda the way it's been in the past by the many, many, many rulers and dictators and presidents mischaracterize certain situations, yada yada yada. Just open up any history book or a newspaper, and ta-da, there you go. So SG-1 here is not arguing for conquest, but about facing reality that if we are to survive, we need to be exploring new worlds through the gate. We need to acquire much needed knowledge and technology to defend ourselves and make allies to help us in the fight to survive the Goa'ulds, especially when, not if, they decide to bring the fight directly to Earth. For the time will come, and whether you believe Daniel or not, sooner rather than later, which was also partly why I was a little saddened to see that a lot of the clips that were shown in this episode mainly referenced the threat of exposure and the genocidal and homicidal tendencies of the Goa'uld, but not so much on the allies that we've come across. You could say, are they really allies? But an episode completely skipped was Enigma. The Nox prove that they are at least friendly and they are willing to help us out. So that's a semi-ally, right? And they are very advanced and very smart, and we can learn a lot from them. So in my book, a significant, positive relationship that could benefit us in the future. Not to mention, in Thor's Hammer and the Torment of Tantalus, we come across the Asgard, for one, but many other races that are out there that are advanced, that are united species of the galaxy, whatever you want to call it, and that we are still yet to meet, but they're out there and they are opposing the Goa'uld and they might want to help us. So for Kinsey to then pretend that none of this is happening and just stick your head into the sand or bury the gate is just dumb. It won't save us. If anything, as Daniel has so clearly seen up close and personal, it'll make us sitting ducks. And that is where Kinsey's arrogance and ignorance shines through when the meeting pretty much completely goes off the rails and Kinsey really doubles down as he greatly overestimates the military power protecting America, apparently not giving a flying fart about anyone else on the planet, gee thanks. But he even goes as far to say that he doesn't believe that God wouldn't let this happen. I mean, if he weren't clear on the fact what a sanctimonious prick he is, wow. The Lulu ain't the Salulu here, Bubba. I think the writers really wanted us to not like Kinsey, or is that just my opinion? When he said, God will not let this happen, that just singed it for me. Like, I will not like you, no matter what. Because when you throw that out, going back to that chosen territory, being favored by God, or, we have multiple religions on this world. And I'm not saying that one is right and one is wrong. I'm saying tomato, tomato, basically. They all hold similar aspects and constructs, and why pick one? Still, like, to say that God will not let this happen to America. I'm sorry, delusional much? And that is then, again, a politician. Do we see the parallels here, people? Sanctimonious pricks, the lot of them. Not necessarily. I'm just like, So is he right to raise this argument? Yes. Is it a valid argument in this instance? No, because he obviously underestimates who the Goa'uld and what the Goa'uld actually are. And this isn't about wanting or not wanting to make war with another country over land or resources. This is SG-1 Stargate Command testifying why, one, this isn't a war that we can avoid, and also it's a war for the continued existence of our planet. Not just you cushy little America, trying so desperately to cleave to that patriotic notion that you are the greatest country in the world, as you have proclaimed for many decades. And I'm hoping that more and more people are becoming aware, starting to believe your own propaganda just a little too much. And y'all in desperate need of a reality check, which, through Trump and his goons, y'all are definitely getting right now. Hey, I'm not just calling out America in this. We are all over the globe falling rapidly back into fascism, because that is what happens when you don't learn from your past and you try to bury and hide it and whitewash it. So we're all in this pickle together. Yay. Anyway, Stargate, right. It's just the parallels, people. Oi. Like, I know I'm Caucasian from Europe, I know my history, but instead of trying to pretend that that never happened, because it wasn't me, it was our ancestors. So I choose to acknowledge my ancestors, and by looking at their behavior, condemning that behavior, I choose to do better, be better. And therein lies the true lesson. Because if you don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. And right now, at this day and age, more than ever before, we have access to our history. We can learn from it. Embrace your past, don't erase it, because then you're doomed to repeat it. It's a cliche for a reason, people. And yet, it seems that so many people really need to fuck around and find out, and force all of us, even the aware ones, to join them. Especially since it seems we, much like the SGC here, are at the mercy of narcissistic, narrow-minded asshats such as Kinsey, who hold the money bag and decide our fate by the policy they dictate, and we are forced to adhere to. But, as this episode so beautifully shows, there are exceptions to every, dictated policy. We just need to see them and exploit them. But now we're getting ahead of ourselves. And if during this episode and hearing Kinsey's points, you actually start to doubt the validity and the safety of running a Stargate program, I'm hoping, assuming, sort of, that they fully blew that one clean out of the water when Kinsey's arrogance and ignorance becomes blatantly obvious, and he even goes a step further, saying that it's Tilk's own problem to deal with the Goa'uld, not ours. I think that singed it for me, that I really, really, really don't like him. Who's with me? Clearly, what the writers wanted us to see. Like, these kinds of politicians are fucking dangerous. Delulu. Because Kinsey is now single-handedly holding the future of the Stargate program in his hand, which General Hammond so beautifully stated is a constitutional right that he was given. Why? And I think that is why this episode is so important. Yes, no one likes politics. At least no sane person, I think, sort of. But it once again shows us a critical view of our governmental institutional systems, how they are operating, claiming to work, but so very clearly do not. and how letting someone make the decisions without fully grasping what's happening and not even willing to truly listen to the people who have up close and personal experience impacts all of us to a greater or lesser extent, whether we want to believe it or not. And okay, a little brain fart train derailment coming your way. People up top making decisions, not listening to people doing the actual work, is what made me implode and why I am now doing this. Because I tried to work with the system, I tried to change the system from the inside out, only to fully realize 1, the system is broken, 2, people are well aware of that. At least some people in important positions are well aware of that. They use it, they abuse it, they exploit it. And they are just not willing to see a change because they benefit from how the world is now. Again, we all knew this, but now we can conclusively prove it. For instance, take Trump. He said he was the president of peace, he started a few wars, and he clearly isn't done because now he also wants to go after Cuba for some reason. While he still has no handle on the Iranian war, because yes, it is a war and not a freaking excursion, you numbnut. But just like everything that we warned you about has come to fruition. Some people are waking up, blessedly. I was kind of sort of hoping so with the duchies, but we just had local elections and no. And I'm trying to come to a place where I can breathe through it and just accept what is, because you can't make people see something or hear something when they just don't wanna. Apparently they need to go through it themselves. But the important part is that we don't lose our marbles. So I'm trying. But in watching and reviewing this episode, just the fucking parallels just keep coming out of the woodwork. I cannot not see it. And like I said, that whole excursion, that scene never once made me laugh until this week. And then it kind of makes me want to cry. But let's laugh, right? Sometimes listening to what's happening and feeling powerless to do anything about it. Yeah. I think we really just need to sit back, apparently watch them find out. And then once people awaken, then we hands and kumbaya or something. I don't know. I still have it on my bingo card, honestly. Either we're going to get a similar situation such as the pandemic, another high stakes global event that will force us to at least try to work with each other, or like really fully erupting global war again. Yay. Nuclear war, God forbid. That'll end the party fast and permanently. Or maybe not even a human driven cause, a big environmental catastrophe. That usually gets people to wake up and really prioritize what actually matters and help each other. Or like an extraterrestrial thing, like an asteroid. I mean, apparently there's an asteroid they literally named Apophis, of all things, that's gonna be coming around the Earth several times. Specifically in April 2029, it will pass closer than some satellites are stationed. Which I think astrologically is like at the beginning of the ozone, but fingers crossed, I guess. Although currently, according to NASA, it will pass us by, but okay. So, are the writers like psychic? I guess we'll find out. Hey, who knows? Maybe an alien visit. Yay! Although, depending on whether they actually still have hope for us or go full War of the Worlds on us is yet to be seen. Either way, I think we have reached that point in time, and astrology does confirm it, that now, basically, is the time where something cataclysmic in whatever way, shape, or form is gonna take place, which wakes even the numbnuts among us up and think, oh, wait, oopsie, help. And then it's up to us, apparently, sort of shittily, damn it, to step up and help. Until then, we do this. That's what I always liked about this show. It made you really consider the petty differences that we fight about for millennia. But then when you have an extraterrestrial threat, all of a sudden, Earth's countries realize that they need to stand together and fight for Earth as a whole. Because we're all on this planet together. We need to learn to share. Well, some of us need to learn to share. Others are actually quite good at it, thank you very much. But like I said, it really is apparently going to be the century of fucking around and then finding out. Choose which side of history you land on wisely, my friend. Okay, that's the end of my brain fart. Just the parallels in this episode today, yeah, sometimes, like I said, makes my brain go off on a tangent. Anywho, what I love about this episode, therefore, is that SG-1 clearly shows that they now become aware and now they choose to do something about it. Kinsey just wants to stick his head in the sand and pretend that the ghouls aren't out there. SG-1 realizes that there is no choice to be made anymore. By uncovering the gate, confronting Ra, Apophis, everything has already changed. There is no going back, which is also something, frustratingly, Kinsey just seems to fail or refuse to understand. And I'm very sad to say that I miss that they didn't make this argument because it was right there for the pickings, people. After Ernest went through, the Pentagon did try to bury the gate. They buried it so well that 50 years later, no one even remembered it. And here we are, 90s. Once again, we opened the gate, and unlike last time, now we came face to face with the Goa'uld and subsequently blew him up. Quite the opening act, wouldn't you say? I mean, the point I'm trying to make is, you might want to bury it. Again, sure, whatever. But history clearly shows sooner or later we will arrive right back here because we're curious. That's just, who we are as humans. It's a human strength and also weakness, you could say. But where we are now in this story, at least, in the thick of it, can't go back. So you might as well make the best of it, make some friends, gain some allies, and hopefully, learn enough just in time to fend the Goa'uld off when, and not if, but when they attack. Daniel also jumps in and tries to explain that just by closing the gate or burying the gate won't work because the Goa'ulds have ships. And the reference that he makes about uploading a computer virus into the mothership, if you've seen the Independence Day movie, hopefully you clocked that. But now I realize that is extra funny because Independence Day was written and directed by Roland Emmerich, who with Dean Devlin wrote, allegedly, the feature film Stargate. But if we were to believe the lawsuit, this might also be a bit misleading, but okay, no matter. I did like that was a nice call out, to the roots of this show, the Stargate movie from 1994. And as I've recently learned, fun fact, Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin are apparently now also involved in the creation of the new Stargate show that they're currently starting to hopefully film in the fall, autumn in the UK. So it really is getting the band back together. Cool. And here I also wanted to take some time to zoom in on the clips that they chose to show in this episode, as SG-1's testimony as to why the continuation of the Stargate program is of the utmost importance because, you know me, I like to go deep. It is one of 3 episodes, and it's setting the stage beautifully to reflect back on how we got here. I mean, how often do you see showrunners actively justify their existence and nailing it? For I do think they nail it. Because we start off with Children of the Gods, where we saw Teal'c defect, and I gotta say, side note, I love that the writers are helping us out here by teaching us how to write and pronounce Goa'uld, which is something not everyone on this show gets right. As Kinsey seems to think that the Goa'uld are no match for our weaponry, O'Neill is quick to remind him that they actually succeeded in killing them once in the episode The Nox, although if you remember from my episode, even I was like, dude, are you even trying not to die? So I don't know how much of a slam dunk that really was, but nice try. Though I was a bit sad to see that they cut the clip off just before we came to the actual pivotal moment in the episode, where Teal'c is facing his former god, looking him dead in the eye and accepting his fate, compelling the Nox to intervene for the first time ever. That was big, dude. Big, big, big. So yes, it was a shame that they cut out before we actually got to the good part. I think the relevant and most important takeaway from that episode, and I kind of see why they chose that specific moment and episode. I think it was sort of a good way to tell Kinsey, yo dude, they killed us once. I think, oddly enough, it actually reinforces Kinsey they're not that bad because you're still here. But then they do, luckily, which I kind of sort of forgot, but yeah, have Daniel remind him, oh no, they killed an entire planet and SG-7, remember? All in all, decent rebuttal, but I would have done it a little differently. Or at the very least, leaned into it more. In my opinion, it would have made a great segue into the true display of power the Nox turned out to be. That was a major lesson for us, right, as viewers and SG-1, that power can take many different shapes, and also how important our friendship with them is. And species like them, including the Tolan, they were also advanced human beings. Although, come to think of it now, maybe there's a reason that they didn't show anything or even bring up Enigma and the Tolans, because technically, they did do all that in defiance of direct orders. In my eyes, as a testimony to the good SGC and SG-1 are doing, and how important it is to be in good favor with those kinds of species, and was a little disappointed that it didn't come up here, but now as I'm talking about it, maybe reminding the senator that we basically just told them fuck you. Not the best move. Let's just go with that probably it was a calculated omission, and yet for the viewer, I think it would have been good to be reminded of that. So here I am reminding you of that. You're welcome. Anywho, from there on, we're on to the Goa'uld ships, and we see the one and only clip ever, I think, on the Stargate SG-1 show of the movie Stargate, where we see Ra land his ship on the giant pyramid in Abydos, but we also see the Hatak vessel of Nirti from the episode Singularity, which was the first time on this show that we saw a Goa'uld ship. Carter also jumps in and says that they've seen the Goa'uld destroy entire civilization, which then cues a clip from the episode Cold Lazarus and the Talking Crystal. So after losing that part of the argument, where Kinsey tried to shut them down, claiming, oh, the Goa'uld are not that big of a threat as you tried to make them out to be, in another attempt to shut them down, literally, he brings up the dangerous diseases we've brought back, can bring back through the gate, thereby now cue a clip from the episode Broker Divide, which leads to a clip from Brief Kendall where Jack almost died, this time from old age. It was kind of nice that they threw in a date on how the people on Argos are now living happy, healthy, long lives. And I love that little moment where Hammond gets irked and finally speaks up because he was irked from the get go. That's real. I did like that Hammond did not stand for an outright attack on his personnel and chose that moment to really speak up and speak out against Kinsey. And as we all knew the moment was coming, Kinsey announces that he's going to shut down the Stargate program. Daniel now jumps in with his warning that the Goa'uld are coming. And gotta give it to Carter, she tries to help him out by explaining alternate realities, but of course, Kinsey doesn't believe any of that. Even though we all knew that this was coming, it's still sad to hear that they are going to shut down the program. And as Earth is going to close its gate, Teal'c now asks permission to leave before they do. O'Neill even says he wants to go with, but Hammond says that they can't. Apparently, if they couldn't convince Kinsey, operations needed to cease immediately, so no more outgoing wormholes. Yet Teal'c now sees that Earth is apparently out of the game in trying to defeat the Goa'uld and free the Jaffa, which is and will always be Teal'c's main objective, underlying all the more how closing the gate for Kinsey is maybe just policy, but to Teal'c, what Stargate Command offers, what the Stargate program does, is his life purpose. And if the gate closes and Earth steps away, he needs to go somewhere else where he can still make a difference, which I found quite moving because it shows how policy really truly impacts people on a personal level. For Kinsey's decision here doesn't just seal Earth's fate, it directly impacts, as Teal'c says, a much greater galaxy-wide battle. For Earth's retreat means that the battle for the liberation of the Jaffa loses its greatest ally. And again, I clap back to the local elections that we just had, and I'll see how things could be so much better for so many if we did things different. And even some are now saying, and I'm starting to believe it, is that democracy is not really a thing. Not when it amplifies certain voices and silence others. Kinsey's democratically elected unilateral decision making not only influences Stargate Command's voice, but it also completely silences Teal'c's voice, the Jaffa who represents millions of Jaffas spread around the galaxy. So, a lot of voices. That might be fiction, but it's a really good characterization of real life. Like I said, that's what made me not want to vote. Yet I will always go and vote because people have fought and died to get me my voting rights back because they were taken away from us. Amen. So therefore, yes, when there is an election, I will always go and vote. Even though I now kind of sort of believe it doesn't really make that much of an impact until we really all start to ignore the higher-ups, come together. But alas, that time apparently is not yet now. But anyway, apparently there was a part of me that still had hope that with all the things going on in the world today, that more and more people were awakening to what's happening, to how we're being manipulated into these crises that are of our own fucking making. But no, again, people voted to villainize immigrants, to just stomp all over other people, and once again, going after the most vulnerable in society and not touching the people up top who have so much more that taxing their asses would benefit the collective and they would hardly feel it. With $10,000, you can lift someone out of poverty. For someone making $1 million or more a year, $10,000 don't mean that much to you. Hardly a blip on the radar. And seeing that we have so many more millionaires and now billionaires and even a trillionaire, you can't tell me that if you spread the wealth, your life would change, if at all. No, they would rather spend that on things like shoes, jewelry, or a watch. I mean, oi, it tells time, honey. What more does it need to do? But that's just beside the point. Anyway, don't want to start any hate there. But yeah, those are the kinds of things that really mess me up. That we are treated like hamsters on a wheel, pitted against each other, continue to go after the most vulnerable in society, while not going anywhere near the people who benefit, create, at least conspiracy nut me or not, I think it can no longer be denied, create this crisis. I mean, the wealth shift that happened during the pandemic was unheard of. That in such a short period of time, the richest in the world sucked up over $1 trillion in just a few years, while the rest of us barely got by. Some people didn't even get by and suffered greatly and are still suffering the effects. And once again, part of the power that they hold over us is trying to pit us against each other, drive us nuts, and make us all reactive instead of just looking at what's happening. And like I've talked about it before, remember your own power. Yes, on a local level, we can still do so much for our community, and it doesn't have to be big. I volunteer, and I love it. Just connecting with the people in my community, doing something that benefits all of us. It's good for my mental health. It's good for my community. I see no losses anywhere, apart from me sometimes being a little irked that a lot of labor is being done under the assumption of free labor, which I am opposed to. And for the longest time, I thought if they would just become aware, they would change their behavior. Only to learn, and that was a very painful realization, a lot of them are aware, at least to a certain extent. They just don't care, kind of like Kinsey here. And I do think that social media could actually facilitate. However, unfortunately, right now, social media platforms are in the hands of big corp morons. Construct these apps to facilitate the opposite effect of what we actually wanted to do. But same with AI, I do see the benefits of it when used morally, ethically, and responsibly in a supporting role, not in a replacement role, where it's used to manipulate us, where we just continue to be a little hamster on a wheel, which is exactly where they want to keep us. But I also heard that there was a very big win in the courts against Meta by a young woman. You go, girl. And also, I'm very glad to hear always when Europe is still bitch slapping Meta and Google and all the big corps in their privacy and AI legislature. In that instance, the system works a little. Again, I'm not saying that everyone is corrupt. It's very easily, insidiously, not a crossover when you deal with politics because power corrupts whether you want to or not. Lately, I've been hearing a lot of people around me who are more in the spiritual communities who are also becoming more and more aware of toxic, hierarchical, fanatical ickiness. For I do think it's part of human nature to seek guidance and support, but so easily we lose ourselves when we become dependent on the other to dictate what, how, and whom we should affiliate with, and what is considered right or wrong behavior, which is, again, part of evolution. Oh wait, we were reviewing Stargate. Okay, sorry. Well, the episode was short before I took this tangent, so, deep dives. Hello, I'm Layla. Have you met me? I'll, of course, mention the titles, so you can skip this whole slippery slide, that politician lane. Back to the reviewing of this episode. Again, this episode shows just how fucking relevant these topics still are. That you learn to think for yourself, that you become very well aware how governmental institutions who hold a tremendous amount of power and influence can directly, indirectly impact our very existence and survival, and that astrology basically says, oh honey, strap in, this is just the beginning. And I do have hope for humanity. I really do, because I also see the beauty and the kindness and the love that we are capable of, because we're not all bad. But right now, and over the next few years, we are really being thrown off the deep end and required to learn to swim on our fucking own and really decide who you are and who you want to be and what you stand for. And more importantly, what will you fall for? Realizing that voting doesn't change a tyrannical system. You can't outvote a dictator. You can vote in a dictator, apparently. But, anywho, too depressing. Although, the ending of this episode didn't really help with that. Though it does end with a beautiful image and soundtrack of SG-1 looking down at the gate in the gate room from the briefing room. And thereby, this is also one of the first episodes where we are truly left feeling dejected. Though, luckily, yay, it is a to be continued episode. So, the next episode, hopefully, gives us at least a chance to process this and hopefully end on a happier note. Although I have to say, it is a season finale, so maybe not so much, huh? But then again, I also said at the beginning of this episode, this is part 1 of 3, so yeah. Oh, true, we're not there yet. What is that quote from Best Exotic Marigold Hotel? Everything will be alright in the end. If it's not alright, it's not yet the end. I like that. Keeps you hopeful, which is something we need, both in watching this episode and in real life. For this episode shows us for the first time a feeling that I think many of us are feeling right now. How truly powerless you can feel in a bureaucratic system, not even in an actual war or, fighting aliens. For we were made to believe that our governments, the bureaucratic systems that are created, are there to protect and safeguard us. And this episode so beautifully, poignantly shows us that when someone in power can't see past their own narrow, narcissistic worldview and has the almost unilateral power to make these kinds of decisions and implement policy changes, they put us all at risk. For again, another truth is power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Therefore, I will never envy anyone in a place of power, but at the same time also acknowledge that we do need them to guide us, lead us, inspire us. But at the same time, know that power also still always needs to be able to be challenged, and if necessary, checked when someone loses sight of the bigger picture. Teamwork really does make the dream work, baby. We're in it together, and therefore we must do it, all of it, together. So in that way, I hope to end this episode on a happier note and leave you with hope, both for the next episode, because of course we know that our SG-1 friends are not going to take this lying down, but also maybe, to inspire you to look around and see where you can make a difference in real life. A better world, I don't know, is that a saying that we had? And we had this saying, a better world starts with you, which again, business corrupted and flipped around to say that we are the ones that are creating climate change and that by us ditching plastic straws we can save the environment. But yeah, by all means not look at factories and all the stuff they pump out into the air, slowly poisoning us all to death. Anyway, right, we were going for a happier note. Sorry. All little things help, right? Taking care of each other, being kind to one another. That really is something that I've seen, experienced. Happiness really is in the small things. Free. So, there. Did I save it? Or did it, fizzle out badly? I don't know. I'm sorry. I tried. Like I said, it's been a rough few weeks. We're not here. Not right now. We are ending this for today. But we will be back, I promise, for another episode, which is beautifully, mysteriously, so aptly named Within the Serpent's Grasp, where we will be seeing a few familiar faces. And I learned something that I did not know, and I'm very happy to learn that, power to the fandom. Yay! Even back then, I mean, God bless. See, we are changing the world already, people. One fandom at a time. Truly. I've seen fandom do great things. See, happy note. Hey! I've seen fandom do great things. Really change people's lives. Changed my life. Presumably your life. So let's come talk about it in our community. All the fabulous things that fandom has given us, that it allowed us to give others. See, I found my happy note. Let's end on that one. Happy thoughts. Happy. Now I feel like Tinkerbell. Oh dear. Anywho, signing off. See you next time. Bye.